Is New Jersey going to be America's next swing state or even a red state? In the nationwide battle between red and blue, few questions have more focus placed on them. And with the countdown to New Jersey's pivotal governor's race already underway, will the ethnic vote decide who controls the Garden State? Ethnic voters in New Jersey shifted dramatically to the right in 2024, casting votes in unprecedented numbers for President Donald Trump. Is that dynamic going to be in play in future elections? My next guest certainly is going to try and make sure that it will. Steve Cortes is a longtime political operative who has advised both Vice President J.D. Vance and President Donald Trump. He came to New Jersey this summer to shoot a special documentary, Ethnic New Jersey Moves Right, Winning Sopranos and Romeros. Steve is the founder of the League of American Workers. He worked on President Trump's 2016 and 2020 campaigns, and he has also led Hispanic outreach for the Republican Party. He's trying to answer the question of if ethnic New Jersey has moved towards the Republican Party, and he joins me now. Steve, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us about this important topic.
Hey, appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me.
Tell me this. Tell me, where did the germ of the idea come to you? Because you're not a native Jersey guy, right?
Correct. No, I'm not. I grew up in Chicago. I live in Tennessee. But the idea came to me because I read that Tony Soprano's hometown and the home county, Passaic County, where most of the action in the show takes place, that both of them flipped. That they flipped from blue to red. And I thought, that's interesting. And I'm always looking for sort of a pop culture angle or twist that I can add into a political documentary to make it more interesting to a wider group of people. But it also points to something much bigger than just being an interesting, I hope compelling short documentary that I made. This much bigger trend of formerly reliable Democrat constituencies, people like Italian Americans, Catholic Americans, Hispanic Americans. And by the way, there's obviously a lot of lap over between those groups that I just named. A lot of, the Venn diagram intersects there. But these groups are fleeing the Democrat Party, and they're rallying to America First and to the new pro-worker Republican Party. And so I want to tell that story as much as possible and tell it from a human angle by interviewing real people on the ground. And so we went to New Jersey. We met amazing patriots all over the Garden State. And look, I believe that this state, which was once reliably blue, the Democrats took it for granted, quite frankly. They have mismanaged the state for many decades. And I believe that this state is now in play. I think New Jersey is the newest swing state. I think it's winnable this election for Jack Ciattarelli. And going forward into future cycles, I think this is a place where Republicans and America First populist right conservatives can compete.
You talked about Italians, you talked about Hispanics, the Catholic vote. Are we also just using different ways of talking about the working class in America that's traditionally been Democrat, but now increasingly gone for Republicans and President Trump, right?
Yeah, listen, that's a great point. You're exactly correct. The Republican Party has been transformed because of the America First movement, because of the leadership of President Trump. And a party that was formerly the party of sort of country club establishment Republicans is now the party of workers. And this is a monumental shift, really a secular, macro shift in American politics, where blue-collar folks formerly identified themselves with the Democrat Party. Well, the Democrat Party is all about globalism when it comes to the economy, and they're all about radicalism when it comes to cultural issues. Neither of those constructs sits well with blue-collar workers, right, who generally have traditional values and want their economic interests prioritized, want Main Street prioritized over big business. So the Republican Party has been completely transformed by this movement, by President Trump. And because of that, we are earning the votes of people who formerly would have never called themselves Republicans. But part of the reason why I made this documentary is I want to remind people out there, because not everyone knows, if they're not super into politics, that look, this is not your parents' or your grandparents' Democrat Party. This is not the Democratic Party of Tip O'Neill or John F. Kennedy. This is a very different, very radical party, a party that believes in prioritizing the rights of China and big business, that believes it's okay to chop the private parts off of children who may be vulnerable and confused. This is an incredibly extremist and in many ways Marxist political party here in the United States. And we, by the way, it's not just the negative. On the positive side, We offer something better. We offer the patriotic populist vision of what can be for America, of making the kind of society we want, of spreading the kind of prosperity throughout the land that we can and that we should. And in a place like New Jersey, especially, so many wonderful things about New Jersey. I loved my time there. I really did. But one of the most troubling aspects of New Jersey, which everyone who lives there knows, is it's simply unaffordable. Life is unaffordable for New Jersey citizens. And that is largely because of what the Democrat establishment, the Democrat machine in Trenton has done to that state over decades. And what we're trying to promote and say is, hey, there's another way. And you know, President Trump did that. He didn't win New Jersey, but he came a heck of a lot closer than anybody believed he could. And he narrowed his margin of loss massively versus previous election cycles. And all of that tells me, you know, again, that this state is in play. And it's largely because ethnic, common sense, patriotic New Jerseyans see the trends in this country, see the trends in their state, and they want something better out of Trenton.
Do you still consider Italian Americans ethnics, or have we gotten to a point where Italian Americans are not part of the ethnic vote anymore?
Yeah. No, listen, it's a great question. I would still consider them ethnics because I think they would probably identify that way, you know, most importantly, whether or not what I think about them. But the point is, you know, however you identify them, generally, we're talking about Catholic, patriotic people, right? And they bring that worldview to everything they do in their life, including politics. And those kinds of people, people who respect the flag, who love the Lord above, who value family, who take great pride in their heritage and their food and their culture. That could be Hispanics, that could be Catholics, it could be Greeks, it could be, you know, all kinds of people. But those types of people generally are going to be the voters who we in the patriotic populist movement are most able to reach. And, you know, and we're seeing that increasingly. But no, you ask a great question. And look, Italians have almost assimilated to the point, which is a great thing into American life, have almost assimilated to the point where they're not all that sort of different, right, from the rest of Americans. And that's a
They
good
assimilated
thing.
the rest of us. We eat their food, celebrate
Yeah.
their holidays, go to their festivals.
Right. And we want that, of course. And by the way, I think the same thing is sort of slowly happening with Hispanics. So my own father immigrated legally to this country from Colombia. Even though, you know, I'm a son of a Colombian immigrant, you know, I grew up in the Chicago suburbs and I'm thoroughly American. I mean, culturally and every other way. I am an American, and certainly my children probably even more so American. So this is the process of assimilation where the country becomes stronger because people who buy into the American idea, who buy into what it means to be an American, who do it legally and come here the right way, add to the cultural diversity of this country in the best way. But when I say diversity, diversity that buys into the American way and that buys into the American way of life and prosperity. And again, that's what what I saw in New Jersey is particularly among Hispanics and Italians, that trend is strong. That affinity, that love, it's particularly binding among those communities. There's a lot of other folks who aren't Italian or Hispanic who want the best for New Jersey, but I found it particularly compelling among those two groups.
And Steve, we're going to get right deeply into your trip to New Jersey in just a moment. But for right now, for you out there, stay with us. There's much more to come on this special presentation of TV Asia, our conversation with Steve Cortes about the ethnic vote changing the United States of America. Welcome back to this special presentation of TV Asia about the changing ethnic vote in America and in New Jersey. Steve Cortes is with me. He took a deep dive into the changing ethnic vote in New Jersey for his documentary, Ethnic New Jersey Moves Right. Steve, when you were on the ground in New Jersey, what did you find that surprised you?
Yeah, you know, I'll tell you the first thing. I have never seen, and I live in the American South, okay? I live in eastern Tennessee, which is a really red conservative part of America full of, you know, Christian conservatives. I have never seen more American flags anywhere in the United States than I did in New Jersey. It's fascinating, right? I mean, clearly a deeply patriotic place, just outside of every home, every small business. And I think part of that is because New Jersey is rightly really proud of its colonial revolutionary heritage. They're very proud that George Washington, right, walked this land and fought there and forged America really there, that it's an original state of the United States. So I didn't expect it to be quite as patriotic as I found. And that was frankly pretty thrilling and invigorating. And, I'll say this too, even though I was focused on the Italian and Hispanic communities. That was the focus of my documentary and how much they have moved politically to the right, groups that were formerly almost captive to the Democrat Party, but have now moved to the right. What I will also tell you is this movement is not confined to just those ethnic groups. For example, I think a lot of Asian Americans are really are undergoing an awakening, a political awakening, and a lot of folks who didn't previously vote, who weren't politically engaged previously, are really getting engaged. Because like one of the problems we had, and I found this nationwide because I do a lot of Hispanic outreach on behalf of President Trump and other candidates, and what we have found is Hispanics overwhelmingly agree with us, but they don't necessarily vote. That's not yet part of their culture deeply. They're not registered. If they are registered, they may vote only sporadically. So
This
we
is a
have to
first or
convince them.
second generation immigrant thing? I mean, you mentioned that you're a first generation American. You're the son of someone who
Correct.
legally immigrated to the United States of America. Does it take time? Does it take 20 or 30 years for those habits to become ingrained?
It often does. Yes, yes. But we want to speed that up. All right. That's my task, is to try to convince people like, no, you are a citizen. Once you're here, we don't care where you were born. Once you are an American, we want you voting, and we want to earn your vote. By the way, on my side, on the patriotic populist side. But yes, in general, it takes decades for those kinds of habits to form and for it to become sort of a cultural way of life. But we want that to happen as quickly as possible, especially for these groups who are patriotic, hardworking, pro-family people. And I think a lot of Asians, for example, absolutely fit into those categories, have that kind of worldview, live their lives and manage their families in that kind of way. So if we continue to reach out to Italian Americans, to Hispanics, to Asians, to a diverse coalition. And this is really, it's pretty amazing what's going on. If you sort of step back from just the day-to-day of politics and look at the bigger picture of what President Trump is doing, what the America First movement is doing, how much we have changed and transformed the Republican Party into a pro-worker party. Well, that pro-worker, pro-family, pro-faith coalition, it encompasses all kinds of races and ethnicities, all of whom believe strongly that they are Americans first, but secondly will say, yes, and I'm also, in addition to being a proud American, I'm also an Asian, I'm also a Hispanic. And that's why we named the documentary, Winning Over the Sopranos and the Romeros, is we want to get people with those kinds of last names to come over to our side and to earn their votes and to convince them to vote, to get activated. And again, that's key. So many immigrants, particularly the actual immigrants themselves, but sometimes even their children, they're so busy building a life in the United States. It's understandable that they don't pay much attention to politics. They put their head down, they work hard, they take care of their families, build businesses. And that, again, it's totally understandable that is their focus. But we want them to also recognize that politics is critically important. And unfortunately, the left right now in the United States is so radical that the left is not going to leave you alone. In other words, the left is going to put a trans man into your daughter's locker room at school. Okay, that is going to happen if we let them. So
And
we
that's typically
cannot
something that
neglect politics.
in my conversations with members of the South Asian community, that's been a major issue that has activated them and
Yeah.
made them more politically aware and made them more open to the message of the Republican Party. How do Republicans build on that?
Yeah. No, listen, it's critical because you know what? A lot of immigrants and immigrant children, they just completely reject this woke nonsense that pretends that there are 50 sexes, right? I mean, no, there are two sexes, God ordained for very good reasons, and they are separated in certain tasks like getting changed and like going to the bathroom for very sensible reasons. And I don't know many immigrants who want their daughter in the washroom with a man who is pretending that he's a girl. That is just, totally unacceptable, except for at the faculty lounge at Cal Berkeley, right? Or maybe the faculty lounge at Rutgers. But in most places in America, that is totally unacceptable. So this is an issue that wins for us politically. We're right on the principles, first of all, got to be right on the principles. But secondly, it's a political winner for us. And we continue to push that. And when you look at candidates, by the way, like Mikey Sherrill in New Jersey, or if you look at Abigail Spanberger in Virginia, these are candidates, they are unwilling to simply speak simple truths. that there are men and women, there are boys and girls, and that girls should have their own space. They should have their own showers. They should have their own sports. They should have their own teams. These radicals, like Mikey Sherrill, they're unwilling to admit these simple truths. And to me, it's disqualifying. It disqualifies them for running for office. And I think South Asians see that, Hispanics see that. I think any sensible American sees that and knows that, no, we need to protect our daughters. We need to protect our wives. This is important for society. There are differences between the two sexes. They are equal in value, but they are complementary. They're not the same. And these kind of fundamental truths weren't even really in question, a couple of decades ago, but they are today. Okay, I don't welcome that fight, but as long as we have to have that fight, we're going to win it.
Well, it also seems to me that what you're talking about, the symptom that you've identified, is Democrats treating people who they want to vote for them as dumber than they actually are. People
Right.
are savvy, people are smart, people who are building businesses and families have innate intelligence, and they can be insulted by having some politician like Abigail Spanberger or Mikey Sherrill try and peddle them something that is just not true.
Yeah. No, 100%. By the way, to that point of insulting their intelligence, to me, the worst example of this that you see from these radical Democrats in the 2020s is when they claim that voter ID is somehow racist. Now, you can't do anything important in your life without showing an ID. Okay. I'm in the hotel room right now. I couldn't check into this hotel without showing an ID. Of course, you should have to show an ID to vote. And what the Democrats' position is that is somehow racist. Why? Because minorities are incapable of furnishing an ID? I mean, are you infantilizing Hispanics and blacks and South Asians so much in this country that you believe they are literally not capable of carrying out the most mundane and essential task of being a prosperous, functioning adult in American society? Well, that's what the Democrats are actually arguing, right? That's one example, but I think an important one of what you're talking about, where there is a true disrespect. And listen, I will say this, and our side's not perfect. Republican Party has a lot of work to do. There are always, in the America First movement is still young, and because it's young, there are growing pains, and we as a movement make mistakes. President Trump doesn't walk on water. As much as I admire him, he makes mistakes. But I will tell you this, we really respect voters, and I can promise you that. I can tell you that from President Trump, from J.D. Vance. I have a lot of personal experience with both of them. I can tell you that from our movement, from the campaign operatives, from senior staff. We respect the voters, and we know that we need to earn their vote. And it's not easy. In a place like New Jersey, it's uphill, frankly, okay? But I think we can and we should earn their votes, and let's make the compelling case why.
Respect and trust. Stay right with us. We will have much more with this conversation with Steve Cortes about the changing ethnic vote in America right after this here on TV Asia. Welcome back to TV Asia with this special presentation on the changing ethnic vote in America. Steve Cortes joins me now. His new documentary, Ethnic New Jersey Moves Right, examines this phenomenon in the Garden State specifically. Steve, as we wrap up, give me some of your conclusions. How is this going to be sustainable for Republicans going forward? And how might Democrats try and fight back?
Sure. Well, let me first give you some statistics because I came into politics in the middle of my life. It was sort of a middle-aged transformation. I was a Wall Street guy before that. So I'm a big believer in numbers. And a lot of people in politics, they avoid numbers. I don't. I run toward the stats. So let's look, for example, Passaic County, which I think is the most important place in New Jersey, largely Hispanic county, working class place, New York metro area, very dense working class county. In 2016, Trump lost Passaic County by 22%. In 2020, he got closer, but he still didn't come close to winning. He was minus 16%. This time in 2024, he won Passaic County. I mean, that's an incredible move over 3 election cycles in one county. By the way, the town of Passaic, Hillary Clinton won the town of Passaic by 52%. She clobbered Trump there in 2016. Trump won it in 2024 by 7%. These are stunning moves, largely Hispanics moving to the political right. That tells me that the trend is our friend, which is a phrase we used to use on Wall Street. So the trend is our friend. Now, it doesn't mean we can rest. We have to work really, really hard. And the Democrats are clearly pushing back. What they're doing mostly in New Jersey is they're trying to nationalize the race. They're trying to make it only about Trump, because even though Trump has gotten more popular in New Jersey, he still lost the state, right? So they're trying to turn it into a national election. But I think what Jack Ciattarelli is smartly doing is saying there are a lot of issues which are very particular to New Jersey. And Trenton and the Democrat machine of New Jersey have made life difficult and unaffordable for citizens there. And I am going to fix that, irrespective of whatever you think of national politics. And I think that's a winning message.
How much is President Trump's personality factor in this? It's not just the policies, right, Steve? It's the personality too.
Yeah, no, and we find that, right? For example, I do a lot of polling, and immigration polling right now is over the top in favor of Donald Trump, in favor of deportations. I mean, massively to us, 60-30 generally, about 10% don't know typically in my polling, but about 60% in favor, only 30% opposed. So by a 2-to-1 margin in favor. But when you then ask about favorability of Trump himself, the number's not 60-30, right? And it's much less favorable for Donald Trump. So we see that, where there are a number of folks out there, and certainly a lot of them in New Jersey, who maybe don't like the president particularly, don't appreciate his style. I happen to. I find him hilarious, but I understand it's not everybody's cup of tea. But when we talk policies and when we talk effectiveness, that's where we see overwhelming agreement, whatever they think of President Trump. And again, I would encourage New Jerseyans, even if you're not a fan of President Trump, he is not on this ballot. Jack Ciattarelli is, and he is running his own race, and he wants to make your life better in New Jersey. And there are things coming out of Trenton that are making your life harder, that is making your neighborhood more dangerous and more unaffordable. That can be fixed from Trenton. This is not a national issue. I love President Trump, but whatever you think of him, it really is not relevant, I don't believe, to this race.
And if you live in New Jersey day to day, with some exceptions, the governor has more impact on your daily life than the president does.
Absolutely. And by the way, I will also tell you this, and I think this is important. New Jerseyans know this, especially folks who live in the northern part of the state. Right across the river, Mamdani is going to be elected the mayor of New York. He is an absolute communist. I mean, and I'm not exaggerating when I say that, okay? He is an anti-police, radical, extremist communist. You are going to have that across the Hudson River in New York City. It makes it even more important to have law and order in the state of New Jersey, because you're going to have threats coming out of the city of New York. New York and New Jersey, of course, are inextricably connected in so many ways, culturally, economically, and otherwise. But in this case, I do believe that electing Mamdani, which appears to be a fait accompli in New York, makes it even more imperative that you get a governor in New Jersey who takes law and order seriously.
Explain this phrase for me that jumped out to me in your documentary. Country-loving hustlers.
The entire national map is therefore in question, as former swing states like Florida and Ohio, they now become solidly ruby red. Is New Jersey next? This is, after all, a state of aspirational strivers, country-loving hustlers who now wake up politically and culturally, and they simply demand more.
Who are these people? What does that phrase mean to you?
Yeah, well, and I was particularly talking about Hispanics there, although it can obviously appeal, it can apply to anybody of any ethnicity. But Hispanic Americans, I'm really proud of this, that we are the most statistically entrepreneurial group in America, and actually by quite a lot. We start businesses at about twice the rate of non-Hispanic Americans. And we start mom and pop enterprises that we hope become much bigger than that. And that kind of zeal, that kind of entrepreneurship, that risk taking, that hard work, is something that I think should really be admired and embraced by all Americans. And we see it in other groups, of course. I mean, South Asians are incredible at entrepreneurship. There are other groups that do this, but because I'm Hispanic, I'm particularly attuned to what's going on in that community. And what I find is when somebody starts a business, they are far more likely to be responsible, not just for that enterprise, but for all the things in their life, for their family, for their church, for community groups that they're involved in, far more likely to coach their team that their son or daughter is on. So people who have a direct, tangible stake in our society and in trying to own something, I think that's key, in trying to own something. Those are the country-loving hustlers who really form the fabric of this country. And that group of people, increasingly, is completely rallying to the political right. They might have been Democrats a decade ago. They might have been Democrats in their parents' or grandparents' generation, but they are now America First Republicans, and we need to encourage and accelerate that movement.
If you really had to put something on the line, Steve, I'm not going to make you put your life, your house, maybe your car, maybe a valued piece of furniture from your house, would you bet that come 2028, the presidential election, New Jersey is going to be a battleground swing state with candidates zipping in and out of it?
That is a great question. I would. Listen. I've got a nice car at home. I would bet my car in 2028 that it is at least going to be tight. All right. Now, again, I'm realistic. It's uphill for Republicans, but it's not as steep as it was. I'll tell you that. I mean, that hill has gotten a lot lower for Republicans. That hurdle's gotten lower for us to overcome, and it is going to be a battleground. And the Democrats are going to have to defend it. They're going to have to defend a state that they previously took for granted. And as a campaign guy, as an operative, boy, does that matter a lot, because when they have to spend time and resources and capital on a place that they formerly took for granted, that really matters. And I'll give you an example. Look at what's happened in Florida. Florida was sort of the consummate battle state, right? It was the
purple
battleground state for decades. It's now ruby red. I mean, thanks to President Trump, thanks to Ron DeSantis, who I think is the best governor in America, Florida is now almost a given for the Republicans. I mean, and that changed relatively recently. So, don't tell me it can't happen in New Jersey. It can.
3 years is a long time. A lot can happen in 3 years. Steve, I know you're going to be keeping an eye on it. We will be too. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today and to our viewers.
Hey, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Steve Cortes, the documentary is Ethnic New Jersey Moves Right, winning The Sopranos and Romero's. It can be seen on X, on social media, wherever you get your electronic signal. Thanks for watching this special presentation of TV Asia. We hope to see you again very soon.